Okay, I got released from Adelaide jail and I got a job labouring and then a bus to Sydney. And later, in the bar of the Piccadilly Hotel in King's Cross, I saw Ross, a kid that I'd met in Long Bay a year before. He'd been one of the nicer crims, so when he left and crossed the road, I caught up and walked alongside. He was delighted to see me, and he dragged me into the Rex Hotel bar and disappeared into the dunny. I read the jukebox. Cliff Richard's "It'll Be Me" was listed, and I liked it, so I put my last coin in the slot and watched the coloured lights flash and the gears whirl and the records revolve and the mechanical arm reached out to pick up a 45 and turned it over and the needle arm moved to the first groove. Little did I imagine that a year later, as I tripped on pure LSD in Balmain, I would actually become the needle on a record player and travel along the grooves of a Johnny Rivers LP. Ross emerged from the dunny with a smirking, well-dressed man who bought him 2 beers. Ross passed one over to me. "Nut Rocker" blasted from the jukebox. Ross said that bloke was at the piss trough looking down at me prick, so I asked him if he wanted to suck it for £5. And he said, "Oh yes, please." So now we got a £5. I was delighted he'd said we have got a £5. That was a good price for male sex. Female hookers didn't get much more. By 10 o'clock we were drunk and Ross led me to 2 double-storied terrace houses on the corner of Darlinghurst Road and Burton Street. He said, "These joints are empty. They're going to demolish them soon to make a Jewish memorial building, but I don't know when, but." Sydney working class people tacked "but" on the end of sentences instead of "though" that Adelaide people used. Each state had unique slang back then. A sign on the fence warned "trespassers prosecuted," but we crawled under a tin fence, squeezed through a door hanging from one hinge, and got to the foot of a flight of stairs with no handrail. The house seemed deserted. Ross bragged, "There's no electricity and there's no water, but this is my fab mansion. No one lives here, so it's all ours. On the top floor, there's a mattress and a library. You like books, don't you, mate? There's an old chap living on the ground floor. He's a bit yarra. And we got to fix that door there because a while back I noticed some bodgies having a sticky beak. So we got to barricade them out. Careful, there's some steps missing." We crept blindly up creaking stairs, 2 hesitant steps at a time. On the top level, he lit a candle, and I saw that the floor was covered by magazines. He said, "We got to save the candle," and he blew it out, but a street light shone through the window. There was a single mattress, and Ross stretched out on it. I lay down as far to one side as I could. He put an arm around me. I gently took it and placed it back next to his side. And he sighed as if heartbroken. And he said, "Oh, shit, mate." We lay in silence and slept. I awoke bathed by the morning sun coming in the window and explored the magazines that were scattered on the floor. They were copies of Parade, a popular monthly featuring Australian history only, so cheap that not even second-hand bookshops would buy them. I was delighted to have this nice place to live. Ross slept on, so I tried not to wake him. And he woke up about 4 p.m. and went out, and I ate at a soup kitchen, and then I watched TV in Grace Brothers' store window. Days passed in luxury as I lazed in our sunny room. Ross had a supply of money. One morning there was a sign outside saying that the house would soon be demolished to make way for the new Jewish Memorial Museum. We treasured the place while we could, a day at a time. Ross loved bread and honey, and I wiped my finger on the wall to get rid of some sticky honey, and 15 minutes later 100 small ants had climbed 2 stories up to it. They must have smelt the stuff from way down on the ground. Ross was getting our bread and honey money from around the corner in Green Park, a well-known, by everyone but me, homosexual prostitution beat. He wanted me to hawk me fork too, but I refused. 3 days later, demolition workers began turning the house to rubble. We had to get out, and I never saw Ross again. In February 1966, pounds changed into dollars. I had none, so it was time to go back to Adelaide and get a job. Needing to get to Liverpool to begin thumbing where the interstate began, I got a train as far as Flemington. If I got off at Liverpool without a ticket, railway coppers might hand me over to real coppers. Yeah, being busted again for vagrancy would cause me to feel hatred for society and to become maladjusted. Flemington had no ticket collector, so I got out there and walked towards Liverpool. My small airways bag contained a very thin blanket and 5 pork sausages I intended to cook in the bush and pretend I was a real hobo for a few hours. As the sun set, a police car passed. The cop stared but drove out of sight, but he'd be back for another look, so I hid in a gigantic cemetery. I wanted to look like Paul Newman in HUD, so I was wearing jeans and a denim jacket. And I hoped no mosquitoes would come around that night to bug me. My legs were tired and my feet were sweating in my thin socks. Walking between graves, I searched for a wooden bench to lay on, but there were only stone ones. A sign read, Rookwood Necropolis, Anglican section. Graves were old and neglected, so I sent telepathic good vibes out and chanted Om Mani Padme Hum in case dead folk were about. I was a novice holy mystic mediator for spirits who hadn't been smart enough to make it through to nirvana heaven. That's a side of my insanity I believed only 5% of the time, so it didn't interfere much with life. In the distance was a flickering light, but if there were ghosts, they'd think I was cool and we'd talk. Maybe I could help them. I crept closer and the flicker became a campfire burning inside a tree stump. It couldn't be seen from the highway. I crouched and listened to 3 silhouettes. Voice 1 says, He sold everything to give to his rotten missus, the poor bugger. He worked his ass off the rest of his life. Swigs from a flagon and passes it to voice 2. Marriage is for mugs. Love 'em and leave 'em, I reckon. He spits. Voice 3 says, Who'd marry you, you pisspot bastard? Voice 2 says, I've had me share, don't you worry. Voice 3 says, Yeah, from Sheila's at the Blind Institute. Voice 1 says, No, fair go. Last night I saw him with Mrs. Palmer and her 5 daughters. They all laugh. I squatted and felt around for a sturdy stick. I'd pretend I had a sore foot and needed it for walking. I wanted that fire, so I sang loudly in a comical manner. It's a lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night where the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear than to stand in the fucking bar of a pub with no fucking beer. Don't worry, I'm not a copper. Voice 2 said, You scared the shit out of us. Good song, but give us a squiz at ya. Voice 1 said, Yeah, let's have a look. Keeping 'em on me right and limping with a stick, I came near. Can I get some fire? I'm freezing. Voice 2 was about 40, well dressed, with rugged features. Voice 3 was old and smiling and voice one had a sheepskin coat and was drunk. He passed me the flagon. "The fog's coming in, so you better get a charge into you." I took it and almost wiped the bottle mouth, but it seemed insulting, so I just glugged a mouthful, and I asked, "Do yous want some sausages? I've got some in me bag." "You beauty! These mugs are too dumb to eat." "Don't put shit on us, you bludger, you never eat nothing." He winked. "You see, young fella," he said to me, "this bloke is a poor no-hope of pisspot, and we have come to force him to AA. Number one stood up and shaped up to three. They sparred about, then collapsed on the ground, laughing. Two made a grill from a bit of wire and arranged the sausages, but dropped two of them in the embers, but three rescued them, and we watched them sizzle and pop. Number two asked me, "How come you're roaming round here?" I told him about Adelaide, my vagrancy, Adelaide jail, and Undine and Yorkie and Jimmy McLean, and we ate sausages and we finished 2 flagons and dozed around the fire. In the morning, I asked if they lived in the cemetery, and number two said, "I come here to make me wife jealous. She thinks I'm off painting the town. Old Bluey, he stays at the Salvos, but he likes it here better. And Bob over there, he lives with his mum. She's a wowser, so he comes here when she's angry at him." And number two said, "I'll show the boy the road and get more grog." And old Bluey sang, "And don't dilly-dally on the way." Walking back with number two, I asked him, "How come he's called Bluey? He ain't a redhead. Does he bung on a blue?" And number two answered, he was going to the Berlin Olympics in 1936, but his parents wouldn't let him because they was Jews. You look up Cohen in the record book and you'll see he was featherweight champ in 1936. They called him Bluey because he wore blue trunks. In them days, most fighters usually wore black and white. At the highway, we said goodbye, and he yelled, "Thanks for those snags, mate." "Cool, man," I said, "no worries." That evening I got dropped off 20 miles past Crookwell. The storm blew out of nowhere. Trees swayed, thunder rumbled, and the wind was 100 bunyips imitating a dozen banshees. When lightning flashed, I huddled under a roadside picnic table made of logs, pretending I was Buddha to warm up. I swayed left and right to dodge raindrips, and I yearned to seek shelter, but I couldn't be sure if there was any up ahead. A sign told me Yass was 28 miles away. I deep breathed to warm up like Tibetan monks in snow, but soon gave up and jogged. It can't get worse than this, I thought. Lightning made me worry I'd get struck and die alone by the road. Please don't let me die alone, I said to God. Dying unloved was my second worst fear. The first was to drown. I thought I'd better get protection from lightning bolts that may destroy my fast-walking self. So I prayed, "Please don't zap me with lightning. I do believe in you." Speed walking in the rain, enlightenment came. God would be too compassionate to lightning bolt me. "Please save me from this rain." Then lo, the rain poureth down harder than before, and I knew I'd made a faux pas and was completely insane from the night of unending wetness. At sunrise, the rain stopped. Near Yass, I dried me clothes on a tree and bought dry shoes from a charity shop and hitched through to Adelaide in a day and a half. Okay, that's all. I'll cease my vagrancy life soon, so you might have something to look forward to, because you can only be a vagrant for so long. 4 years was enough.